Welcome back to the Nebraska Shootaround podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Bigelow, the men's basketball beat writer for Varsity. Joining me is my co-host, Jacob Bigelow, contributor to Huskers Illustrated. And joining us again, our favorite guest, although I think the only guest we've had so far this season, but still our favorite, Drake Keeler, the women's basketball beat writer for Varsity, because we have a big win to recap and to talk about. And a strong stretch of the season after a bit of a dip for Amy Williams' squad. So right off the top there, Drake, how are you feeling? I know you're back at home. How are things going on back there?
Yeah, doing good. I left yesterday. Didn't get to see the Kansas game. Just left early because of the weather up in Nebraska. But yeah, it's been good. I'm happy to be the favorite guest here. So.
Biggs, how are you surviving the negative 30-something feels like temperature here in Omaha?
I am wearing a lot of wool socks, and I think I've got my old man fleece-lined pants on right now, even though I'm inside. Just going full cozy, warm outfit, and laughing at high majors losing Christmas week buy games, but we'll talk about that later. So,
yes, we will get to that. So, like the last time that we had Drake on, we'll ladies first. We'll talk about everything that's been going on with the women's team, and then we'll get on to the men's team after we let Drake go and talk about the 1-1 showing from Fred Hoiberg's squad. But yeah, let's start with that Kansas game. Number 20 Kansas coming in unbeaten to Pinnacle Bank Arena on the frigid night, snow flying all over the place, and Nebraska pulled out an 85-79 triple overtime win. I thought they had that game lost 3 or 4 different times. They had so many chances to win it, couldn't make the play, but in the end, they pulled it out. What do you see for them, Drake?
Yeah, I mean, it was really great game to watch, just more than anything. But it was interesting to see them. They got out to that lead in the first half. I think they led by double digits in the first half, then it dropped down by halftime. But they took advantage of some time without, Tyanna Jackson got in foul trouble early, and that kind of allowed them to take the lead. And then it kind of just slipped away through the second half, just slowly as Kansas's defense really just forced some turnovers and they got back in it. But I like you. I mean, they had a chance to win it at the end of the regulation and second overtime as well. I think the Jazz missed that lob layup. And so I also thought that, they might just lose this game, but they pulled it out and really did well. I mean, by the end of the game, Alexis Markowski had fouled out, Allison Widener had exited, and they still pulled it out.
Yeah, we'll talk about all that. So actually, I was watching the game on TV. I was not gonna risk the weather trying to get down and back from Lincoln, and glad it was on TV though. Shout out to Anna Bellinghausen, Hurrdat Sports, who was on the play-by-play for that. Yeah. So I pulled up I was looking at the live stats to figure out how much time was left for that last possession. And they actually put the points up on the board. I think the people running stats thought Jazz had made that last shot because they put a layup and 2 points on the board. It's like, they won. And then the play happened and the ball circled and popped out. I was like, are you kidding? I went back and looked and they had quickly taken it off. So yeah. I thought the game was over, but it was not. So thanks a lot, stats people. But we got another 5 minutes. And then after – it was 2-2 in the first overtime, 8-8 in the second, and then got going a little bit with some free throws and some big plays late. But 15-9, they won the third overtime. So yeah, just really continuing this run. It's kind of been an interesting season. We the last time we really went in depth on the women's team was after the Creighton game, which disappointing loss there. And they followed that up with an 80-62 loss at Drake. So coming in with all these expectations, top 25 team, back-to-back blowout road losses. Then you got wins against Tarleton State, Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, Mississippi State, and another overtime game where that's kind of when I think Jazz Shelley really turned up. We'll talk about her in a minute, but so they had lost, and then they came back and went to number 9 Virginia Tech and got run off the floor. Lost that thing by 31 points. So they lost 3 of 6 after coming into the year. Expectations through the roof, really struggling. Then they went and beat number 20 Maryland on the road and beat them by 23 points. And since then, they have won 5 straight. They're now 10-3 overall. They finished the non-conference 8-3. So just kind of off the top, what do you make of this season so far for this team that came in expectations, kind of stubbed their toe, but now they're looking like they're settling back in?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really interesting because those back-to-back losses by the margins they lost by, I mean, still kind of surprising even in hindsight. And then that Virginia Tech game too, they hung with them for like 3 quarters. I mean, they were still down like 10-15, but then that they just fell apart in that final quarter. But Jazz has, really picked it up since that, I guess, trip to Puerto Rico even, and she's been a lot more aggressive while Sam Hybe's been out. She's returned recently, of course, but that's been a big part in kind of getting some momentum back and winning some of these later games. Alexis Markowski has stepped it up as of late with these 5 straight wins. She was really big in in yesterday's game. So I mean, it's been a lot of Jazz stepping up. I feel like she's been a really good force as of late. And she wasn't, as productive in those games against Creighton and Drake. So that's definitely an X factor there.
Yeah, I got the numbers to back that up there. She started the season 5 for 27 from 3 in their first 5 games, and was averaging 8 assists a game during that stretch. So not shooting well, but trying to make plays for others. In the 8 games since, she has shot 29 of 55. 52.7% on almost 7 attempts a game, and her assists are down to 5.6. So still making plays for others, but looking for her shot a little bit more. I guess, what have you seen from her, and how more aggressive she's been? Have they changed things? Is it just a mindset for her, realizing the team needs me to play maybe differently than I was trying to early on, or is it just shots falling?
A little bit of both, because I mean, when she started the season like that was just like even uncharacteristic, for her, no matter what. But she's definitely been more aggressive recently, and that's been good to see. Especially I think that's something the team needed with Sam Hybe out. But it's also been the shots falling. The 31 and 29 points in the first 2 Big Ten games were huge, and I'm really interested to see how she continues to perform as the season goes on.
Yeah, and then they've also, especially last night, they got some tiny reinforcements. They, like you said, Sam Hybe had been out for an extended period of time. Ray originally thought they had lost her for the season. Now she's back. Izzy Bourne hadn't played since that Maryland game at the start of the month. And then with volleyball season coming to a close, they've added a pretty, literally and figuratively, a pretty big piece in the middle in some added size inside in Maggie Mendelson, 2-sport star out of Utah, very highly regarded recruit in both volleyball and basketball. She'd been working out with one of the assistant coaches once a week, just so she wasn't like completely rusty when it came time to make the switch. And she wasted no time coming back from volleyball to basketball, and she's made an instant impact. What have you seen from her so far?
Yeah, she's been really impressive these last 2 games. I think in her debut, she had like 9 points and 3 blocks. The 3 blocks, I mean, she was really good defensively. I felt like she needed some time to like get adjusted offensively still in that first game, made both of her shots and all 5 free throws. And then, this last game, she was really good as well on the defensive end, kind of looked better offensively, ended up with 9 points again and 9 rebounds and 2 blocks. And I mean, shot 5 for 8 from the free throw line again. I feel like she's someone that's going to get to the free throw line. She's obviously 2 games, but she's shooting it solid from there. So, I mean, if she continues like remotely like this, that'll be huge for the team off the bench.
Yeah. And she played 10 minutes in that first game, played 17 in that Kansas game. and she played a lot in the overtimes. Like Amy Williams trusted her, not being around the team all season, come in as 2 games under her belt, and it's like, you're our best option here. Especially, it was big, especially after Markowski fouled out, and Mendelsohn was out there and made some big plays down the stretch. So I guess, what do you see? Where do you see her making the biggest impact?
Definitely defensively. I think that's something they need off the bench. I think there was a stretch in the third quarter where both her and Markowski were out, and Tiana Jackson kind of took advantage of that. And then, through the rest of the game, Tiana Jackson didn't score in the overtime periods. She had 18 points, 20 rebounds. Really good performance from her overall, but still, and it was, I don't know. I thought it was really interesting that Amy put Markowski and Mendelsohn on the floor at points, and that really helped. So that was fun.
Yeah, that's what I noticed too. It's like I didn't really expect to see those two sharing the court as much as they did, but it certainly makes an interesting kind of look for there. And I think part of that is Alexis's ability to space the floor now. Now she's averaging 13.6 points, 9.8 rebounds through 13 games. She's got 6 double-doubles, shooting 49% from the field, but 42.5% from 3. And she's second on the team in 3-point makes. What have you made of her season so far?
She's been really good, especially as of late. I felt like she's been good defensively. I think in the Virginia Tech game, she played pretty solid defense on Liz Kitley, obviously, one of the best players in the nation. And she stepped it up against, the best matchups she's faced. She's got 6 double-doubles. She had some down performances early on in the year, but even lately, especially, she's really picked it up on both ends.
Yeah, and she had a big one. She had a big 3. I forget what overtime it was in. Might have been. I forget where that all those overtimes were a blur. But she stepped out and hit a big one to tie the game, and I was just like, okay, Alexis. I hadn't watched a lot of them since the Creighton game, but I was definitely tuned in last night. And yeah, like you said, Jacob, to see her add that ability to space the floor and step out and hit some, that definitely makes the idea of her and Mendelsohn on the court at the same time a very viable option. And there aren't a lot of 1-2 punches inside like those two could provide. And I touched on this earlier, Drake. We after the Creighton game, we kind of questioned what Jazz without another. There's no other way to put it. Without another scoring threat in the backcourt, her maybe taking too many shots or doing too much or whatever. And that was when they were without Sam Hybee. Now, obviously, kind of the pleasant surprise of the year was her coming back as quick as she did. And, she's obviously she has to be the oldest. She has to be the most veteran player on the team, doesn't she?
Yeah.
She was around when I was working women's camps as a manager. That's how I know she's been around for a while. But there's how big of a spark has Sam been since she's came back?
Yeah, she was really good against Kansas. Still working her way back. I don't think they wanted to play her 25 minutes. Amy Williams kind of implied that post game that they're trying to keep her minutes relatively down. I think she played 9 or 10 against Wyoming.
8.
Okay, yeah, 8. So, but she was pretty good. Had some big shots. So that was pretty impressive. And as she continues to get back to full health, that'll be really important, especially with Allison Widener possibly out.
Yeah, that's what I was going to touch on next. Hybee finished with 12 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. Shot 4 of 11 from the field. Had some rust stretches there. You can definitely see the rust that she's working off and trying to just get her timing back, because there were some plays where she just put her head down, ran to the basket, and threw something up and hope for the best. So you would think timing would get a little bit better as she continues to play. And yeah, going from 8 minutes to 25 minutes, probably not what they wanted, but she played 25 minutes and was able to make some big plays late to help them out. She's the one that dished out the go-ahead assist to Izzy Bourne in the corner for a three, and that's after she was at end of regulation, was it, where they put the ball in her hands and she went up and forced up a really bad shot at the basket.
It was one of those last.
Yeah, one of these.
Yeah. I don't remember it, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
One of the many end of game scenarios.
So to come back and make the right read that time, drew the help, put the ball right on the money, and Bourne knocked down at three is a big time play. But like you said, we saw Allison Widener, unbelievable hustle play, sprinted back, like block, stripped someone that would have been a breakaway, easy layup.
Tie it at that point.
Yeah, huge play, but momentum carried her off the end of the court, and she ran into a camera person sitting in a chair behind the basket and stayed down, ended up getting helped back to the bench of the locker room. She did come back. She was clear, tears on her face, looked like she was in quite a bit of pain and not feeling great. So we do not have an update as of this recording. So we're hoping for the best. They do have a break now, 7 days off between games, which is important considering Jazz Shelley also played 51 minutes in that game. So good to get her a chance to get off her feet and rest. But Bourne coming back, that was huge. She had missed 3 games. Trinity Brady has been out. She took a shot to the head, face, something, I think, in a game recently. So that's a starter that's been out. Yeah. So and then obviously Sam came back and almost immediately got hurt and then missed a few games and then made her return again. So what have you made of this kind of recent run of injuries and where the team is now from a health perspective, from a depth perspective with some of these players in and out of the lineup?
Yeah, it's tough, especially because Allison had been playing like really well throughout, the course of the season and made a lot of big plays, like the one she got the block on. But you do wonder about that guard depth now with Trinity Brady potentially out. She's missed the last 5 games. Allison Widener, and then Sam Hybe, who steps into the starting lineup now if Allison Widener misses a few games. Sam Hybe, we just talked about, they might want to keep her minutes down. Kendall Moriarty is there. Kellen Haig didn't play against Kansas. I'm pretty sure she was in uniform and available. But it's going to be interesting to see how they manage that depth. Jazz Shelley, she's had like 3 performances, three games of like 40 minutes or more. So, I mean, she's probably going to keep carrying a big load. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah. See, there she is. Yeah, so he's played 51 last game, played 40 against Maryland, including, and then 41 against Mississippi State, including she scored like 14 straight in one of those overtimes, hit a bunch of threes.
4 consecutive threes.
Yeah.
It's wild.
32 points in that Mississippi State game, 29 against Maryland, 31 against a bad Wisconsin team, but still got to make the shot. So 7 to 12, 6 to 10, and 7 to 12 from 3 in those 3 games. Then she had a 24 against Kansas, shot 4 and 9 from 3, had 6 assists, but also 6 turnovers, 13 turnovers in the last 2 games. She's averaging about 3.4 turnovers a game.
Yeah,
that's definitely something that she needs to clean up because like some of them, like she makes some passes. Like she's the best passer that I've seen in a Husker uniform. In terms of just some of the throws that she makes. But she also has some careless ones where she just kind of assumes she's going to be able to make a throw and doesn't really focus in and put it where it needs to be. So I think that if we have if there's something to critique about her recently, I think it would be that. But she's going to have to carry load, and you just got to hope for the best for Allison Widener. Like I said, they finished what was it? 8-3 in the non-conference, started Big Ten 2-0 with the 2 early games. But what have you kind of made overall of their non-conference now that it's in the books, and kind of the kind of resume that they've put together for themselves as we head into Big Ten?
Yeah, I mean, it looks good, and it was good that they were able to close non-conference play with a good, win against Kansas, because the previous, obviously, non-conference foes, the toughest matchups they faced were Creighton, Virginia Tech, and Drake is up there. So those are to kind of rebound and end strong was really important. That win over Mississippi State was pretty good too. They're a solid team. I think they're like 10-2 or 11-2 right now. But that was a really good way to close it. You just kind of hope that they carry this momentum. Obviously, they're not just going to win out, but you wouldn't like to see some of the double-digit losses they took early this season. So it looks like they're a different team now than they were in those games.
Yeah, and so tough start to the Big Ten. They host Michigan once they get back from break on next Wednesday, and then they go to number 4 Indiana, who's tearing it up on January 1st. With the kind of non-conference incomplete, and we're moving on to the Big Ten. What have you make of the conference as a whole? Have there been any surprises? Is it kind of what you expected it to be? Just what is Nebraska walking into now with Big Ten play starting?
Obviously, a very tough conference. Michigan and Indiana, like you said, doing really well. Michigan just beat North Carolina, a top 10 team. And then Indiana's obviously top 5. Ohio State's been doing really well. They don't even have J.C. Sheldon right now, and they're doing that. They're still number 3 or whatever. So yeah, and I think if there's a surprise, I maybe like Purdue. Purdue's been pretty good. They think they had their like best non-conference start ever. I saw that earlier. But they've been a fun team to watch. So I mean, it's a tough conference. There's a lot of good teams.
Yeah.
And then there's still that girl over in Iowa City.
Yeah, of course.
Then there's still Caitlin Clark, who's averaging a casual 27 points a game and almost 8 rebounds a game to go along with it. So all sorts of good players in the Big Ten from top to bottom.
Yep. Looking at the most recent bracketology, they had Charlie Cream had Nebraska as a 7 seed, one of 7 Big Ten teams in the field. And that was before this Kansas win. So you have to think that definitely boosts them up a little bit. But ACC has 8 and SEC has 7 alongside the Big Ten. So that's kind of, it's a tough conference there. But Nebraska, after that dip, they look to have turned things around. They've already got a big Big Ten win under their belt with that Maryland game. And now they're in, I think, pretty good shape. If you just got to hope for the best from a health perspective.
Absolutely.
Drake, anything else you want to add before we let you go?
No, not really. I mean, that was just an incredible game yesterday. Really just did not know how that was going to end. Both teams had a lot of opportunities to end it earlier than they did. But I mean, we can just hope for more entertaining games like that.
Yeah, if I was better prepared, I would have pulled out the clip of Amy Williams, "Let's go," walking off the court at the end of the game, just kind of because that was phenomenal. She coaches with so much emotion.
She was having a game.
Some of the reactions to the calls and non-calls, and then the celebrations after the big play is like nobody, I think, coaches with more energy than Coach Williams does over there on the bench. So, it's a good one ending into the holidays. And so, just got to hope for the best from the health perspective, and we will bring you back on later on the season once maybe get another big win or they get on a good run here, and we'll touch back in later on.
Of course, thank you.
Yeah. Go enjoy your family. Have a great holiday, Drake. Thanks a lot.
Will. You too.
Thanks, Drake. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Yep. That unbelievable game. I wish the weather had been better. I would have gone down and covered that game myself just because I had nothing else to do. But credit to Amy Williams Bunch for pulling that out. That Tiana Jackson we mentioned, 6'6". Just an absolute monster, just grabbing the ball over the top of people all over the place. Good finisher. So it's a huge win for them. Unfortunately, the other team that we're going to talk about now did not get the huge win that we thought they could potentially.
Against the team from the state of Kansas.
Yeah. Yep. So Nebraska went 1-1 since our last recording. The men's team lost to Kansas down in Kansas City. Bigelow now you got me mixed up. Lost to Kansas State down in Kansas City. you and I both made the trip down for that. I was trying to pull up a box score, and then I remembered, they never got the live stat working, so that's why I
Yep,
can't
there
find
was
it.
no stat broadcast. They called this a neutral site game when it
Oh.
felt like it was a Kansas State Alumni Association event. It was probably about a 70-30 split between people wearing purple and people wearing red. The Power Cat logo at center court, the Kansas State pep band,
Pre-game hype video.
Pre-game hype video, everything. It was a Kansas State party. Basically, it would be the equivalent of Nebraska saying, "Can we get a fourth game? But we'll play it in Omaha." That would kind of be the version. That's kind of what it felt like. But still, no excuse. But just it was a neutral site game only in the net rankings. That's the only way it'll be defined as a neutral site game.
Yeah. 71-56 was the final score. They shot 32.1% from the field, including 4-21 from three. So 18 turnovers on top of that. So that's the ball game. It really
Absolutely
does come down to that. They just could not do anything on offense. The only bright spots were Wilhelm Breinbach and Jamarcus Lawrence, two underclassmen who led them in scoring, with a career high 13 for Wilhelm and a career high 9 for Lawrence. We'll touch on them briefly, but just kind of the game, I guess the story of the game. Rough start. They scored a putback slam from Juwan Gary on the first possession, and then did not score again for quite a while. Nearly 5 minutes, in fact. It took for their second bucket, which was also a Juwan Gary putback. They got off to a good defensive start, I thought. Like they
forced a shot clock violation right away.
Right, first possession. They were locked in. They were flying around. I mean, they went 5 minutes without scoring and still was within striking distance once they finally started scoring again. They fell behind, and then they cut it down to they fell behind by 12-6, and then Wilhelm 5 straight. Put back and then a catch and shoot 3 on the wing on a pass from Lawrence, I believe, to pull it down to 1. So despite the bad start on offense, they kept battling. They never took the lead, but they cut it to within 1, cut it to within 3. They're hanging around, and then it just kind of got away from them. The sequence that started it late in the first half, last 6 minutes or so, down 22-19 at that point. So within striking distance, give up a corner 3 to Keontae Johnson. And then Juwan Gary gets a finish off the basket on a cut. So good response. And then things went sideways from there. Kansas forced a turnover, but Sam gave it right back. Then they could not secure a loose ball. They blocked a shot and just could not corral it. Went out of bounds, gave him another possession. Juwan Gary stole the ball from Keontae Johnson, but then just casually kind of held it out, and Johnson stole it from behind him, took it right back, and scored. That was a big sequence there. And then C.D. Wilcher missed a good look from 3, and then Marquise Noel, who, boy, is that guy cocky.
Yes, he is.
He contested 3. So you go, good look 3, you don't make, then they go down immediately and hit a really tough 3. And make or miss game. That's what basketball is. And that right there it kind of illustrated how this game was going to go. And then CJ had a really bad turnover on a bad pass, and nobody picked up Keontae Johnson in transition off the turnover. Threw an alley-oop for nearly half court, went up, threw it down, and that put them up 11. And that was basically kind of the sequence there. It was 32-21 after that. Nebraska had been battling. They hadn't really let Kansas State go on any extended runs. That's the one where they just mistakes on their end, failure to make plays. You're kind of falling apart on defense, not doing what you need to. Allow them to create the separation, and then on a day when you're not shooting well, any kind of separation is a death knell. They went in. They gave up another alley-oop at halftime to go in down 39-26. Second half, they stretched it out to 19 midway through the half. It was 59-40 after, again, another play where I think Derek Walker stripped the guy going to the basket. The ball bounced around. 2, maybe 3 Huskers ended up on the ground, and somehow the ball found its way into Keontae Johnson's hands, and he put it up for a layup to give him that 19-point lead with just under 9 minutes to play. So that was basically, you're down 19, you can't make shots. They did rally from that point on. CJ hit a contested 3 to start the kind of comeback, and then airballed a look from 3 on the next possession. But still, they put together a 10-0 run, got it down to 59-50 by holding Kansas scoreless for nearly 5.5 minutes. And then the Naquan Tomlin 3 from the corner ended that run, and that was really the dagger because they had more opportunities to cut it in and just couldn't make the shots down the stretch. The closest they got was 7 on a Jamarcus Lawrence corner 3 with 1:20 to go. But again, from that point on, it was just Kansas State went 9 of 10 from the free throw line. Nebraska scored 1 point the rest of the game via a free throw. And so it ended up not looking as close as it ended up being in the second half. But just a really weird game with the scoring droughts and the way everything played out.
Oh, absolutely. No, it was definitely odd. Like you said, I think Jerome Tang put it well. His post-game comments, he said like their goal, Kansas State's goal wasn't to stop Derek Walker, it was to limit his touches. He kept on referring to the Creighton game and the Purdue game, just saying, we know what he's capable of, but to cut down his chances to do what he's capable of, that's how you quote unquote stop him, is by limiting his opportunities. He could never really get going. He just made one shot from the field. CJ Wilcher is clearly lost right now. He's chasing. He's trying to find his shot really, really, really hard, and it's just not looking great for him right now offensively. And then Greasel, who we talked about going into the game, that how Kansas State defended him would be a big part of the game, and early on they were getting after him, and he made a couple mistakes early on in the first half, and then he just didn't play for the last 7 minutes of the game, which added to the weirdness Saturday night in Kansas City.
Yeah, and really nobody, like I said, nobody in the starting lineup played well. You feel bad for Derek Walker in particular. First game back at home, and just nothing kind of went his way. Finished 7 points, 6 rebounds, 5 turnovers. Got in some foul trouble at one point. Only played 27 minutes. He said only made 1 bucket, 1 of 5 from the field. Went 5 of 6 from the foul line, but again, that's not the game that you wanted. Greasel finished with 4 points on 4 shots. That's it. 1 assist and 2 turnovers in 24 minutes. So he just wasn't doing a whole lot when he was out there. And Hoiberg sat him for the last 7.5 minutes. Vandemel shot 2 for 10, didn't make a 3, 2 assists, 2 turnovers. Gary had 11 rebounds, 8 points, but 3 of 9 from the field, didn't make a jumper. And then Wilcher, that 3 was the only bucket he made. So it's impossible to win when you have 2, 4, 6, 9 total buckets from your starting 5. That's just. It's.
And then Casey 1 for 8 off the bench. So
yeah.
even like your spark plug, plug in to get a bucket guy, even he wasn't on his game. Just a recipe for disaster offensively, and then defensively, they just kind of got outworked. Really, that was Fred Hoiberg's point of emphasis. Derek Walker put it bluntly. He said, "We got punked." Fred, in his post-game comments, was, "We're not good enough. We're not talented enough to not be the hardest working team on the court," and that showed, especially late in that first half when Kansas State was throwing alley-oops. I was getting St. John's 2017-18 flashbacks when Miles' last team went out there. I was like, this is turning into a clowning. This is going to get ugly. It was just almost everything. Well, I don't even know if almost everything that could go wrong for Nebraska went wrong. And then insult to injury with Keontae Johnson finishing with 23 points and 11 rebounds. The guy who should have been on your team this year.
Yeah, that one definitely had to hurt. We talked about it in the preview. Keontae is one that had the heart issues at Florida that ended his career there. Entered the transfer portal after getting okay from doctors to resume playing, and took a visit to Nebraska, but couldn't get cleared medically here from the doctors and the people talking. And went down to Kansas State. Their doctors okayed it, and so now he's playing for them and leading the Big 12 in field goal percentage at nearly 60% from the field. So yeah, that, and he's just such a good player. He got a lot of broken play buckets, but also had knocked down a couple of threes that were big. Kansas State, they took a lot of threes, but they also hit 10 of them. And when Nebraska only hits 4, that math isn't going to work out in your favor unless you're dominating the paint. And they only scored 28 points in the paint. So just like Hoiberg said, he was first time he was really disappointed with their effort. And I thought, again, it wasn't that bad to start with. Defensively they were fighting. They were giving themselves a chance, and then as the offense continued to just not work, you could see the cracks starting to happen, and they weren't able to stay locked in. They had some mistakes defensively. They went through stretches where, again, guys weren't getting matched up. They weren't securing loose balls, all that type of stuff. And game just got away from them at that point. So unfortunate. Again, another missed opportunity. But they did bounce back coming home against a Queens team who we said is the best team outside of maybe Boston College that they played at PBA this year.
In the non-con.
In the non-con. Yes. So Purdue also played Purdue, but again, look at those games a little separate. This team, Queens, is a lot better than all the bye games they played early on with Pine Bluff and Maine and Omaha. So it's a team that has some players that are good in certain things. They did a good job on their best player, Kenny Dye, in the first half. He got going a little bit in the second half, which is why the game ended up being as close as it was. But they kind of held everybody else in check for the most part, made them really shot under 34% from the field. Kind of story of that game, it was a 75-65 final. Weird game again. In the first half, Nebraska had runs of 11-0, 11-0, and 7-0, and they led 43-26 at halftime. So feeling good going into the break. Everything's going the way you need it to. You're worried about the trap game element, how are these guys going to be the game before break, coming off of the disappointment down in Kansas State. I thought maybe that would actually kind of be a benefit. I thought that too. You shouldn't need a wake-up call. You shouldn't need a reminder going to the break. It's like, you got embarrassed, you got outworked, and Hoiberg said that the film study was the longest they've had all year. So I thought that they'd be fine and the guys would be locked in, and it certainly looked like it early on in the first half. And then, with the big lead, that's when things can start to get away from you a little bit. Second half, they let it slip away a little bit. Although, watching it back, Queens really did hit some tough shots to claw their way back into it. It wasn't necessarily a lot of defensive breakdowns and giving up layups and open threes, kind of the same way that Kansas State made runs. It really was they had a couple push shot, catch and push, contested push shots. They had finishing through contact. They had contested jumpers. So Queens ended up kind of showing off their talent in the second half. And Nebraska got a little careless on the other end. It really was, I think, the offense that more so than even the defense being bad, it put them in some bad spots. Just some careless turnovers. They made some bad decisions in terms of forcing some shots on the other end that gave Queens chances to go down and score. And that's how I thought they kind of left the door open. Queens cut it down to 9 with 9.5 to go at 62-53. And just kind of the sequence there after that, Emmanuel Bandamel had a tough finish and then got a stop on the other end. And then Derek Walker found Juwan Gary cutting for a layup after his man had dug down on Walker in the post. And for the N1, put him back up 10. And then Derek Walker split some free throws and forced a miss on the other end. Then he hit Gary cutting for another layup, and Queens missed a 3. Traded empty possessions. Then Gary drove and finished to put him up 71-56 with about 6 minutes left to play. Then you gave up a second chance 3 to Queens. You're like, yeah, you need to secure that first rebound. But Derek Walker scored a putback on the other end off his own miss. So that at that point, it's 73-59 with 5 minutes and 16 seconds left to play. That was the last bucket of the game for Nebraska at the 5 minute and 16 mark. And they still won the game by 10. The last 5 minutes of that game was absolutely brutal. So here's what Nebraska did in the last 5 minutes, because I counted it up.
Oh, jeez.
6 from the field, including 3 threes, 2 of 2 from the free throw line with a turnover. Sam hit 2 free throws with 34 seconds left. Only points they scored in the last 5 minutes. So, yeah, Queens, fortunately, wasn't much better. They were 2 for 8 from the field, missed all 3 of their threes, and 2 of 3 from the foul line. So Nebraska's defense was good enough not to let that game slip away despite not scoring for 5 minutes. And they were still able to win win a game by double digits because of it. But you don't want to see 5 minutes of scoreless basketball from this team, certainly against a team like Queens.
Yeah, no, definitely. This was just a case of, Nebraska just couldn't put these guys away. Kind of felt like at halftime, like, okay, we've seen what this team can do in the second half. They're a second half team, foot on the gas. Let's get out of here. Let's go home for Christmas, all that. And then it just like, it was never in doubt, but they just couldn't quite like slam the door.
Yeah.
They just kept on that's probably a mixture of let's go home for Christmas and Queens battling. Like you said, they made tough shots. They weren't they weren't gonna just give up. But most importantly, in my opinion, for this team, they made it through the non-con without any non-conference home losses, no bye-game losses, no head scratcher, what the hell, no Nebraska basketball isms for the non-conference slate. Things that we kind of had come to expect these last couple of years, no matter who the coach is and no matter who's on the team. They finished the non-con 7-4, right? In the non-con.
Yep.
And then the two losses in the league to have the record at 7-6, with one more game to go in the calendar year.
Yeah, and we talked about everybody struggling, all the starters struggling, plus their 6-man struggling at Kansas State. Was a bounce back game for everybody but CJ Wilcher.
Mm-hmm.
The other 4 starters were all in double figures, and then Tominaga added 15 off the bench. Griesel was really good, 16 points, 6 of 9 shooting, 3 assists, 3 rebounds. Walker, 13 points, 6 of 8 shooting, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. And a lot of it was just, I'm bigger, stronger than you, and I'm going to go get a bucket for both those guys. It was good to see, again, those guys bounce back. Although Sam did hit a couple jumpers too. Had a little baseline, little 10-footer type thing. And then also catch and shoot, confident 3 that he buried on a kick out.
Mm-hmm.
Again, anytime you see that go down, that's a great sign for him, just from a confidence perspective with the slow start he got off to. Tominaga, 6 of 12, 3 of 7 off the bench. And the thing that I found interesting was 2 of his threes were off handoffs. And you go check hailvarsity.com. I did a film breakdown with a lot of clips and stuff of Tominaga's start to the season, because you look at his efficiency numbers heading into that Kansas State game, and they were unbelievable. He's in the 98th percentile of scoring efficiency nationally, because he is shooting over 12 of 22 on catch and shoot threes, spot up threes. So it was basically an almost automatic. But he had struggled when you tried to get him more involved in other ways. When you actually kind of run actions for him, the handoffs, the what else was it? Off screens. You run him off screens and you run him off handoffs. He'd struggle and hit shots in those situations. So it was good to see him kind of bounce back and hit some of those tougher threes where you're not necessarily kind of in place, get your feet set. You got to shoot him off movement, and he knocked down 2 of those. So 15 off the bench for him, and then Juwan Gary 11 and 7. Again, you get 11 and 7 from Gary on 4-7 shooting. He was 0 for 2 and 3 this time from 3 this time, but hit 3 of his 4 free throws. You'll take that kind of performance every single game, and you get that as long as other guys show up, you're going to have a chance to win. Like, that's kind of the ideal, I think. Obviously, yeah, we'll take 20 and 10 every single game, but if you're looking at kind of a realistic range for him to shoot for, you get 11 and 7 from him, you're going to feel good about your chance to compete in that game. And then Bandamel, 10 points on 10 shots, 8 rebounds, but 1 assist, 2 turnovers, and 0 of 4 from 3. So this is starting to be a problem. We talked about it previously, last episode, I think. Just that's kind of the key to this team, raising its ceiling, is to get him shooting better. And he is not shooting better. He is now down to 24.6% from 3 on 4.5 attempts per game.
Yeesh. That's not great. That's not good. And at the end of that Kansas State game with Greasel on the bench, it kind of felt like he was trying to play hero ball a little bit. Some of those shots he was taking, and wild takes to the rim, like it just he needs to find something offensively. We've seen what he can do defensively. Star in his role, probably going to defend your primary ball handler every night. He can do. He's shown us what he can do there, but still plenty of question marks for him offensively. And he's taken the most shots on this team offensively. He's taken 119 shots this year, and I have said, why the hell on a majority of those? But I was shocked. I was shocked when I learned that he's taken the most field goal attempts on the team, only by 3. He's taken 119. The next 2 closest guys are taking 116. But I don't think you want him being the guy who's taken the most shots.
Yeah. Sorry if you heard that random Christmas music sounder. Apparently, Sports Reference has autoplay ads that I forgot about. So that's what that was. Trying to look at the team page. Took me a second to realize what was going on, but the joys of remote podcasting like we are off the laptop. So anyway, Bandamel is the guy again. Got to track that. Like you need better shooting from him for this team to have a chance to have success in the Big Ten, and has not happened yet. But the last 2 notes I had from the Queens game, one, Lawrence Jamarcus after his big game against Kansas State, where Hoiberg left him out there for the last 9 minutes of the game. He hit some big threes down the stretch to help them make that run and make it competitive. And first guy off the bench, and he unfortunately struggled in this one. Played 10 minutes, did not make a shot, was 0-2 from the field, missed a mid-range jumper, and then missed a 3. He had I don't know how they have him with 0 turnovers, because he had a ball go right through his hands, but 1 assist in 10 minutes. So he got beat a couple of times on defense, wasn't quite in the right position. So just overall kind of struggled to stack good performances on top of each other, but noteworthy that he is kind of put himself in the position where he's a rotation player now. He jumped ahead of Denham Dawson, who didn't play in either of these last 2 games. I think he might have been sick down in Kansas City.
Yeah, we had the weird Rothstein tweet going into the game of Denham Dawson will be available to play. Okay, thanks, John. I didn't know anything was going on there, but so that was going to be my next question. Is we haven't seen Denham Dawson since Purdue, but yeah, Fred talked about guys being sick going into the K-State game. He said C.J. Wilcher was the guy who missed practice but maybe it hit Denham too. So
yeah,
definitely interesting that Jamarcus has he's slid right into the rotation. We'll see if Denham's working his way back or if it's a permanent thing or whatever. But now, as we record this, they don't play again for a week, and we can touch on the team that they play in 9 days because they were a part of one of the biggest upsets in college basketball history, both in terms of odds. And they were 31.5-point favorites over Eastern Illinois yesterday in Iowa City. And then also in terms of KenPom rankings, they were a top 25 team in KenPom. And Eastern Illinois was number 349 in KenPom. There are 363. I thought it was 3. I think it's 363 in Division One. And Iowa lost at home to Eastern Illinois yesterday. And they wasn't like a fluky, like Eastern Illinois made a buzzer beater or won it at the end. Eastern Illinois scored 55 points in the second half. And the precursor is obviously that this Iowa's been without Chris Murray for the last couple games. Sounds like they're probably expecting him back for this Nebraska game naturally. But still, not a good day for Iowa athletics as a whole yesterday between football recruiting stuff and some comments that were made, and then a loss at home to Eastern Illinois.
Yeah. So good call, 363. Trivia time, playing off one of my favorite podcasts. So shout out to the CBS guys. Do you know who is 363rd in KenPom right now?
IUPUI.
Okay, you win. They're having a very bad season, although they do have 3 wins. Delaware State, Mississippi Valley State, Alabama State, Monmouth. Looks like they and Jackson State. Jeez, a lot of teams with one win, with just one win right now.
Mississippi Valley State. Yeah. But yeah, IUPUI has been like notoriously bad for the last couple of years. Pretty sure they had to have a walk-on tryout last year just to fill their roster.
Yeah.
World of hurt.
Yeah,
world of hurt. But
yep. That's like Iowa after that loss. But yeah, so that'll be the first game back after the break. I think we'll I don't know if you want to next week maybe go back over and kind of put a bow on the non-conference and maybe hand out some grades, something like that, and then offer our thoughts on the Big Ten heading into the conference. We can probably knock out a quicker episode on some of that stuff next week without any games to recap. But in lieu of Nebraska basketball, go enjoy the holidays, spend time with your family. It's been a rough couple of weeks for me personally with people I know. So make sure to go spend time with your people. And we will come back next week to preview Big Ten play. The real thing starts now for Nebraska. Stage 1 is complete. Stage 2 coming up, and it's a bear.
Absolutely, man. The Big Ten grind. They got 18 more in the conference. Gonna need to win some of them, clearly obvious. But starts with Iowa, and then I think they go on the road to the Breslin Center to take on college basketball's favorite angry elf, Tom Izzo. So that is what's on deck. Like Jacob said, go enjoy the holiday, spend some time with your family, and we appreciate everybody tuning in. And until next time, this is Nebraska Shootaround. Talk to you next week.